Today on CityCast DC. So we're trying out something new, a roundup of all the big stories you missed this August. Everything from a bizarre heist in Adams Morgan to a new supermarket policy that might complicate your family's weekday dinner. I'm here with CityCast's Priyanka Tilve and Julia Karen to run through 8 stories, relay race style. Today's Tuesday, August 27th. I'm Bridget Todd, and here's what DC is talking about. So Julia and Priyanka, as y'all know, there are so many stories that come across our desks and our laptops every week that we can only cover so many. So this time, we want to actually do a new thing on the show where we're going to be talking about 8 stories that folks might have missed this past month. You might be thinking like, that's way too many stories. This is going to be a long episode. No, we actually have a timer. We are going to time ourselves to only talk about these stories for 3 minutes. Isn't that right, Priyanka?
Yes. So we're actually using the app that I use for when I'm doing like HIIT workouts at the gym that I'm making up myself. So at the halfway mark, it's going to tell us we're halfway there, some motivation or like a speed up because you haven't gotten through all the details yet. And then it's going to give us a 10-second warning and then a 3-second countdown. So yeah, we're bringing the gym energy to the podcast today.
News roundup, make it hit.
Yeah.
So if you hear some timer noises, some dings, some bells, do not be alarmed. That is all part of the process.
Yeah. All right. Well, Julia, you're going to go first. You ready?
Put me on the clock. Let's do it.
Let's go.
Love that intro. All right. So basically, people might have seen over the last month or so that there is going to be another sports study for an RFK Commanders stadium. DC is going to pay an LA firm $500,000 for the study. The first one, people might remember, was conducted by Jack Evans, the same Jack Evans.
Oh, controversial council member.
Yes, that same Jack Evans. That study, and I'm using quotes here, report found that a new stadium at RFK could create 2,095 annual new jobs and $1.26 billion in economic growth. So I'm interested in why they're even having a second study in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the headlines I saw about this were people being like the city has done this secret deal, but the point is that they already used taxpayer money for a study exactly like this in the past, right?
So it isn't quite exactly the same. The deal is that this new study says it will go deeper into the specifics of a new NFL stadium. So that includes like venue operations, site design, and the thing that we are all interested in, a financing option and what the financing options look like. So that is where this new study is going to differ.
Why was this so controversial?
A couple of reasons. One, we already have a study again in quotes. So why do a second one? Unless the first study was like very rosy-eyed of this whole thing, which I gather a lot of people thought it was. Is that the halfway mark?
Yes, it is.
Crushing it. Okay. So will these results be made public if it contradicts this first study? That is what I want to know. Basically, if this report comes in and it says, actually, this stadium isn't going to create all those new jobs and all that economic growth in a city that clearly needs it, are they just going to keep it private? Is it going to get leaked? Like, I would like to know. The second thing that I find interesting about this is that Congress has to pass a bill to let DC even use the land at the RFK site. They need to get congressional approval from James Comer from Kentucky. That is in the works, but it's unclear if it's going to get passed because it's an election year, and why give anyone a win this go round, right?
Yeah, I think I saw something from Josh Harris, the owner of the Commanders, saying that he thinks that it will get passed. Obviously, he's going to say that, but he thinks it's going to happen in the lame duck sessions, like after the election. He's like, no one's thinking about this before the election. One thing I guess that does come to mind is Jack Evans was in office a while ago. So if he was the one who was conducting that first study, it's probably been a minute, right? Maybe they were just looking for a more recent study, given how much the city has changed.
I guess. I mean, that's a possibility. One of the other things that I keep coming back to when it comes to the Commanders is like their season is obviously going to start this upcoming week. It's going to be week 1 of the NFL season. And so having this kind of hangover and like, will they get a stadium? Won't they get a stadium? I'm interested to see.
Round two.
Crushed it. Let's go.
Priyanka, what's going on with the GW shelter?
Okay, so I don't know if you guys remember this. Last year, we covered the story about how they were considering opening up a shelter in Ward 2, which is where George Washington University is. This is like the Foggy Bottom area of the city, pretty central downtown. There are no other shelters in this area. And Mayor Bowser had promised in her last re-election campaign to put new shelters more equitably across the city. And so this was supposed to be a game changer. It was supposed to be a shelter in an area of town that doesn't have one. It's a former GW dorm called the Aston. It's on New Hampshire Ave. And so, yeah, it was supposed to originally open almost a year ago, November 2023. But as you would expect, especially for this area of town, there was a big outcry. A lot of businesses in the area said, and hotels especially, said that this was going to hurt tourism, that it was going to bring more crime to the area. None of these things actually are evidence-based or backed up by any sort of like statistics in the city. But those were the concerns. There was a whole lawsuit. Actually, I think there were two lawsuits, if I remember correctly, from anonymous residents in the area saying that they didn't want the shelter because of, as I said, like the disarray they were concerned about. Sorry, that was the halfway mark.
But to be clear, the disarray they're talking about is not evidence-based. It's more like vibes-based.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, the new headline is that the Aston, that shelter, is officially going to be opening. I don't know what happened to the lawsuits. I guess they went away. But it's going to be opening between mid-September and early October. And yeah, it's a big deal. They're going to be housing 30 women and up to 100 men. And the way they got this kind of done is that they've come up with this like quote unquote good neighbor agreement that the neighborhood's going to vote on September 23rd that lays out shared responsibilities of the tenants and neighbors. And they also came up with a bunch of data collection points that they're going to try to track, like any 911 calls for unusual incidents, that's in quotes, noise issues, facility issues, stuff like that, to try and make sure that as this shelter comes on board, there's transparency with the neighborhood about how much it is or isn't changing the vibe.
Under 3 minutes. Wow.
Yeah.
You breezed through that.
Well done. Bridget, I know that there is a story near and dear to your heart, and it is the fact that Giant is banning kids now again. What is happening here?
That's right. We got to talk about my old DC nemesis, and that is Giant food grocery stores. So we did a whole episode about how much I do not agree with and hate their new bag policy where you can't bring in backpacks, totes, or duffels measuring bigger than 14 by 14 by 6, even though that policy is like totally scattershot in terms of enforcement, whatever. Now they have a new policy. 6 out of 7 Giant food grocery stores in DC are banning minors from entering the store without an adult after 6 p.m. 3 stores in Northwest are doing this, 2 in Northeast are doing this, and 1 in Southeast are doing this. Only one store, the one at 3336 Wisconsin Ave Northwest, will still allow unaccompanied minors in the evenings. So you might be asking, like, why are they doing this? Do you have any guesses on what their reasoning is behind this policy?
Is it for stealing things and theft?
Yeah, it's got to be shoplifting. That's what they always say.
It's for shoplifting. I mean, we need more than 3 minutes for me to discuss how I feel about this policy.
For sure.
At this point, I think Giant needs to produce some clear data about what theft actually looks like in their stores to continue passing policies that I think are totally out of step with how DC residents actually live their lives.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a real bummer. I mean, minors, that's anyone under 18. So we're talking like 16 to 18-year-olds go to the grocery store all the time, I'm sure. You know?
How many times has your mom been, when you were a kid, like, oh, go pick something up?
Oh, all the time. My parents literally, when I was 16, was like, all right, you're cooking dinner once a week. You're going to the grocery store. Like, we'll give you the money, but you need to go and figure it out. Also, if your kids, wouldn't prime, like, quote unquote, shoplifting hours be like right after school, like 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m.? Wouldn't that make more sense if they were going to do this, you know?
That's a really interesting point. Yeah, the 6 p.m. timing is strange. I wonder what the thought was behind that. Like, does crime increase at that time?
Well, this is what I'm saying. Giant has passed so many new policies. I think that it's up to them to demonstrate why they're needed. So this is my call to Giant grocery stores. Produce some data. What do your shoplifting numbers look like? How many of those shoplifters are actually shoplifting from the self-checkout? Like, let us know. If truly this is going to be a policy that meaningfully changes theft in the stores, great. But at this point, it's time to put up or shut up, Giant. I'm laying down the gauntlet.
Have other shoppers also laid down the gauntlet? I need to know. You can't be the only one.
All over Reddit, which, like, shout out to DC Redditors. They are so mad about every new policy. And by the way, they actually made their bag policy even worse recently by saying shoppers have to consent to have their bags searched when they're leaving Giant.
Christ.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, no love for Giant in DC these days.
Brutal.
Well, speaking of kids, another story that caught our attention this month was the Eagle Academy charter school story. I don't know if you are familiar with Eagle Academy, but it's a charter school that started in DC around 2003. They have 2 campuses, one in Congress Heights and one in Capitol Riverfront. Last Tuesday, so exactly a week ago, they announced that they would be shutting down less than a week before school started. School started yesterday.
Oh my God.
So that's 350 kids that all of a sudden needed new schools. I don't know if either of you have friends with kids, but the school situation, like the way that school enrollment works in DC is complicated, and less than a week to find a new school for your kid is not adequate. I mean, like, there's always the option of sending your student to the DC public school in their neighborhood, but very few students in DC actually do that. A little more than a quarter of students make that choice. And that's because a lot of the schools in other areas of town might be better for you. There are charter schools that have just like better academic data and success. And so most families enter the city school lottery and then like hope and pray that they got into a better school when the lottery results are announced in March. That's not an option for these kids who now had less than a week to get enrolled into new schools. So pretty wild story.
But I also saw that Eagle Charter was like maybe merging with another school. I wonder if part of this was like, if we can't do this merger, we might close.
That was exactly it. So there were a lot of allegations of fiscal mismanagement. Half the families that like went to this school left during the pandemic, like between 2019 and 2023. And so they were having a lot of financial problems. They blamed their issues on fiscal mismanagement by their previous leader. And yeah, essentially there was a deal on the table for another charter school in the area to take over management of Eagle Academy. And on Monday last week, that deal was denied, basically. The DC Public Charter School Board said that they weren't going to do that. And so, yeah, the school shut down. The DC Public Charter School Board has offered to help students enroll into new schools, or I guess they made that offer last week and now school has started. So here's hoping those kids are in class. I don't know.
God, I really feel for these parents. This time of year is such a scramble, like summer ending and getting your kids into school, that like how chaotic. I really feel for those parents.
Let's be real, lawsuits are not fun, but with Paulson & Nace, at least they're a little easier. Paulson & Nace is a DC law firm in every sense of the word. It was founded here in 1979. Partner Chris Nace is a local who cares deeply about the DC community, even serving on the board of the local branch of the Living Classrooms Foundation in his free time. Nace and his associates Samantha Peters and Maya Perry handle medical malpractice, wrongful death, and other complex injury cases. And they don't just settle every case. They'll go to court. They'll fight for you. Paulson & Nace has even been recognized as one of U.S. News' best law firms. So if you have been hurt or lost a loved one because of someone else's mistake or negligence, call Paulson & Nace for a no-obligation consultation. Visit www.paulsonandnace.com. That's PAULSONANDNACE.com. Or call 202-463-1999.
It's that time of year again. The Maryland Renaissance Festival is here, and if you've never been, you don't know what you're missing. I go every year because when else can you dress up like a hot medieval knight and double fist turkey legs? There's so much to see and do. It's like a 16th century theme park with shops and pubs, music and performances, all just an hour from DC. My personal favorite is the live jousting, which can get alarmingly competitive and realistic. The festival opens August 24th and runs Saturdays, Sundays, and Labor Day Monday through October 20th. Tickets are online only at MarylandRenaissanceFestival.com, and they're cheaper through September 8th, so get yours now, and I'll see you there.
All right, so speaking of buying new supplies, what would you do if you had $100K in jewelry just floating around if you had it?
Down payment on a sick house.
Ooh, good call. Well, according to WJLA and NBC4 and a bunch of other news sites, there was an apparent heist at a jewelry store in Adams Morgan. A guy tunneled his way through the wall of this store and stole $100,000 in jewelry. And apparently there was an abandoned construction site next to this specific store, an abandoned building. And so all the person had to do was drill through. According to the news, this person took leftover tools from the building and could have used some to tunnel through the 2 to 3 feet of brick between the two buildings. So that's how they got through and got all this jewelry. It's nuts.
That's actually brilliant.
What a score. Like, I'm a huge heist movie fan. Like, I love Ocean's 11. And this, it's not robbing the Bellagio and the MGM Grand all at once. But, like, this feels very heisty. I don't know. How do you all feel about this?
The DC equivalent, for sure.
Yes.
What was this store and why did they have 100K of jewelry?
So, according to NBC4, this was a jewelry and liquor store. So they also could have stolen liquor if they wanted to, but they did not.
Interesting combination for a store. Come get your jewelry and then leave with a handle of vodka.
I feel like you have to have the vodka to get the jewelry, right? Like, you ply them a little bit, you know? Like, that's the move. Apparently, this isn't the first time someone has tried to break into this store. According to the owner, someone tried to break in a couple of weeks ago through the rear wall of the store. So, I don't know. If you've got a jackhammer, apparently this place is easy-ish to get into. I don't know. Hire better security. I don't know what to do.
I'm shocked that there are people going around just trying to like straight up jackhammer through walls as their way of breaking in. Like, I feel like we hear about more high-tech break-ins these days, you know?
Also at like 2 in the morning or 3 a.m., like Adams Morgan, yes, like it's a loud area, but like there are people who live there. Surely someone would have heard a jackhammer going at 3 in the morning. Wouldn't that wake someone up?
Well, this was on Columbia Road, right? So it's like
Yes.
the quieter end of the neighborhood anyway. Like, this isn't in the middle of 18th Street. So yeah, that's pretty interesting.
So I know like one of the big things that store owners and Adams Morgan have been saying is actually we want better security. So maybe this will lead to better security at like 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning before people go into these jewelry stores. I don't know how they would implement that, if that would be with cameras or guards or something like that. But having an abandoned building next to your shop and having that be a known entry point, I feel like is kind of dangerous.
Yeah, I feel like they're constant. It's like whack-a-mole with the crime tactics out here.
Speaking of which,
Oh, yeah, true. Cameras. Yeah, okay, so I am a member of Vita, that is like my gym, and there was some controversy with Vita this month because in the U Street and Logan Circle locations, they installed cameras in the men's locker rooms.
Only the men's or the men's and women's?
Only the men's.
Weird, okay.
Yeah. They said that there had been some serious theft issues. Once again, wow, there's a real theme in this roundup today.
Not 100K worth of jewelry though, right?
I don't believe the men were carrying around 100K worth of jewelry in their gyms, but there had just been a lot of reported theft. Again, this is like what the actual CEO says. So they'd put in these cameras. Obviously, there was an outcry. The funny thing is that apparently the U Street location had these cameras up for like 60 days and no one said anything, no one noticed, no one complained. But the Logan Circle one, the second these cameras went up, there was an outcry. People saying that they were going to cancel their membership. Obviously, people were really upset. And so Vita ended up reversing their policy and last Wednesday came out and said that they're, at least for now, not going to be using the cameras. They said, this is your club. Your input is paramount. We will not have video surveillance of the sink area and the walkway in the men's locker room. We will still have security cameras at the entrance to the locker rooms. What they said is happening is that some people who are not Vita members are coming to the gym, skirting past the front desk by like coming in at a time when a lot of people are checking in at once, and then going to the locker rooms, stealing things and rushing out, I suppose. And I don't know how you handle that other than with cameras, but obviously I don't think cameras in a locker room is the solution. People walk around naked in there. Like
y'all, can
okay.
we just keep it real? Like, everybody knows what's going on, right? Like, we hear this message from the CEO of the gym. This is a gym that has a high gay men population who go to this gym. They're only putting the cameras in the men's room. Do I need to spell out for you what these cameras are actually meant to deter?
Oh, probably not.
Yeah. And I mean, the rumors around Vita are not unknown, we shall say.
Like, we all know what's going on.
I will say, trying to track these people down, like I go to a local gym in Cleveland Park and you have to scan, like you have a scan bar basically that you scan when you go in. I wonder
Same.
how they deal, at least at the Vita Fitness, with like multiple. Do they have like multiple check-in points where you have to scan in, or is it just like one thing and people have to form a line and then you know are out the door and
Yeah,
whatever?
I mean, there's like one or two depending on the size of the location, and I mean, actually, there might be some with more, but there's not normally a line because people check in fast. But you know, it's still, it can get hectic and easy to skirt around. So, drama.
All right. So, and speaking of drama, I'm about to start a war here on this podcast. There was a study recently done by Forbes Advisor that stated that Virginia ranked higher than Maryland on road rage incidents.
No
So
way.
Marylanders, I'm with you. Virginia drivers, they're worse. This survey asked 10,000 drivers across all 50 states. So this was all over the country, whether they had experienced 9 different road rage metrics. So that was like being cut off, tailgated, or on the receiving end of offensive gestures. So like someone sticks their middle finger out the window at you. I've had that happen multiple times. If you're wondering, California had the most confrontational drivers, and apparently Hawaii had the nicest drivers. So I don't know. Should we all just move to Hawaii and drive there? I don't know.
And like up their aggression statistics, because that's what'll happen.
No, it won't. How dare you? So Virginians scored second in both the percentage of drivers who say that another car has forced them off the road and in drivers who've blocked them from merging lanes. Maryland, I hate to break it to you, we can't claim total victory yet. Virginia was ranked 7th. We were ranked 10th. Okay?
Yeah, that's still
Ranked
not
10th.
great.
According to this survey, we are the 3rd highest in percentage of drivers who've reported being purposely blocked from merging lanes and 5th highest in percentage of drivers who claim that another driver has cut them off the road. And by the way, this happened last week where a Virginia driver literally on Rock Creek Parkway tried to make an illegal left to go up the ramp to Georgetown, and I had to brake because I thought I was going to get T-boned. So Virginia, what are you doing, guys? I'm sorry. Come on.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I will say Virginia drivers, Maryland drivers, I know the reputation is that Maryland drivers are the worst, but I definitely see both of them acting pretty crazy out here on these DC streets.
Listen, my view of this is all of us are horrendous. All of us. I don't care if you're born in DC. I don't care if you're born in Maryland. I don't care if you're born in Virginia. Can we all get it together collectively as a tri-city state area and collectively decide that we don't want to be jerks to each other and share the road in harmony and in peace so I don't get T-boned on the way to an appointment and nearly have a panic attack. I would love that.
Just slow down and calm down. Nowhere that you're going to is worth getting somebody killed, hurting somebody, winding up in prison. It is not that serious. Slow down, calm down, relax.
But it's DC, Bridget. People got places to go.
Not that badly.
Yeah,
that
in
badly.
prison. Or
apparently.
the hospital after getting T-boned.
God, the worst.
Yeah.
The worst.
Truly. Well, on a happier story, what's up with Keith Lee, Bridget?
So do y'all follow the food critic on TikTok, Keith Lee? I love his videos. He's got 16.5 million followers. And basically what he does is he kind of secretly goes into these mom and pop restaurants, gets takeout, eats it in his car, which is something that I feel like very spiritually aligned with, like eating in your car. And he makes these videos, and basically it's called the Keith Lee effect. He can blow up one of these mom and pop spots overnight. Well, he went to Atlanta, didn't go great. He went to New York, and now he is coming to the DMV. He's already been to Okonami Asian Grill in Fairfax, which is like a build-your-own bowl concept with Asian flavors. Have y'all been there?
No, but that sounds very up my alley.
Yeah, that sounds delicious.
He went to a food truck called Flavor Hive, this is a really cool concept. You bring any bag of chips, and they will add toppings and sauces like Frito pie style for a flat $10 fee. And then he posted on Instagram, like looking for spots to go to. People were shouting out different places like Legacy Carryout, The Breakfast Club, Miss Toya's, Le Diplomat. However,
Oof, that's not the same vibe.
yeah.
One of these things is not like the other.
Yeah. I mean, I think he was looking for places. I mean, I think it illustrates sort of like the idea that there can sort of be two vibes in DC, the sort of old town, longtime resident, hometown vibe, and then the sort of like other like fancy, wine and dine kind of vibe.
Yeah, fair. That's true.
One of the front runners in where he should go was Dukum Ethiopian Restaurant on U Street, which is one of my favorite restaurants. So in his comment section, the daughter of the owner, Lydia Tefra, posted a video saying, please come to the restaurant. Since her dad passed away in 2022, her and her mom have been really struggling to keep the restaurant open. And Keith Lee actually came, and they've already said that they've experienced a bump in people going to the restaurant.
Whoa.
So truly, this Keith Lee effect is real. And I'm really interested to see what his eating through DC actually looks like.
Does this mean we're not going to be able to get a table at Dukem for the next 3 months? Is that what that means?
I mean, honestly, for the owners, I hope that's true because
We agree.
I want them to have all the money and all the success. I've actually heard of restaurants being like, when Keith Lee came, it was great, but we actually couldn't keep up with how many customers, some of these are really mom and pop spots.
What I love about this is that some of these places are also places that locals, people like us that are so invested in learning about and reporting on the scene also don't know. I've never heard of Flavor Hive. That sounds so fun. I am absolutely heading over there with a bag of jalapeno chips,
Ugh. Takis with toppings? I'm in. I'm so in. Did they have a bag restriction size on the chips? Is it you could bring
it's not giant.
Yeah, no, I know. All I'm saying is if I bring a 20-ounce bag of Funyuns, are they going to just top it with whatever? And that's the flat fee? Because this is a price per, supply and demand thing.
We'll have to call them and find out for you. Wow, that was a marathon.
What a sprint.
We
Damn.
did it.
We did
it, Joe.
Julia, Priyanka, I will not see you at Giant. I will not see you on the cameras at the Vita Fitness. Maybe I'll see you at Dukem.
Yeah, maybe if we can all get in. Thanks, Bridget.
That's all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, tell a friend who wants to be a better DC, Maryland, or Virginia driver. We'll be back tomorrow morning with even more news from around the city. Talk to you then.